Okay, I am going to show you how to get started on your own Google drawing. So for this, we're going to focus on creating something that looks like a mosaic. When you first open up your own empty Google drawing, it's going to look very much like this. First thing that you want to do after you open this screen is create something that's going to end up being the color of your grout. Now the grout is going to be the color that's in between every piece, so every shape of the picture that you're going to be creating. It seems like one thing that seems to work pretty well for most pictures is if you make the grout really dark, it'll have a lot of contrast to the nice bold colors that you're going to use in your picture, and it'll just help it to stand out a little bit more. So for mine, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here on this toolbar, and I am going to click on this to add a shape. Now when I do that, I'll go down to shapes, I'll go over to the rectangle, and I'm going to draw a rectangle that covers this entire space. So I'll start here, I will click, I will drag until I get to the opposite corner, and then when I do that, it just automatically filled it in with this light blue. I'm going to click on this bucket, this paint bucket, and when I open that, I'm going to have all these different colors to pick from. What I tend to do for mine is just go with a nice black for the grout. You can choose what you think is going to look best for yours. Plus, if you start with a color, you can always go back and change it later as well. But I'm going to click on the black, and that's going to kind of be the background for what I'm going to do. Next, I am going to put an image right on top of this. This is going to be a photograph, and then I'll work on top of the photograph. So to do that, I will go up to where it says Insert, I will go down to where it says Image, and you have some options over here. If you have a picture of your own that you would like to put into this piece of artwork, you can certainly do that. Or if you have some sort of an idea of what you want it to be, and you want to find a photograph from the internet, you can certainly do that as well. So based on those different options, you can select what's going to work best for you. For example, if you wanted to create something that was a self-portrait, you could actually even go down to where it says camera. You could have it take a picture of yourself or of something else that you have next to you, and that could be your artwork. Or if you have a picture that you already like, you can click on Photos, and you can even scroll through your photos that you have, select one, click on it. Down here, there will be something that says Insert. Click on that, and it will just fill it in for you. If you want, you could do something like that. I'm actually going to delete that because another option is you can go to Insert, go down to Image, and then you can actually click on where it says Search the Web. You can scroll through, find something that's going to work for your picture. The biggest piece of advice that I can give to you is to find something that actually has a lot of contrast. For example, if you were to select, let's say, this picture, it might be a nice picture of a moose or the animal that you're trying to select, but there's not really a lot of contrast. It's all kind of in the middle range for value. It's probably not going to work very easily or very well for your picture. So instead, I might scroll down and see, oh, this one has some better lighting, so maybe that's the one that I would like to select instead. So I am going to click that one away. This is the one that I have the check mark on. It says Insert, and I will click on it. Once I do that, it's going to show up again in that space. You're probably going to notice that this particular one does not quite match for the size. So what I have to do is I have to actually move this up, and I'm going to move it even outside of that rectangle, and then I'm going to select one of the corners. I don't want to click on the sides because that's going to make it really kind of strange. So instead, I'll click on the corner, I will drag it until both sides are at least touching that rectangle. And then if I double click my picture, you're going to notice these little black marks on the sides. What I can do there is when I see that arrow appear, I'm going to click and I am going to drag until up here I see that this red line lines up with the end of that ruler. So if I move it over, oh, that's not lining up to the end, but there it is. So I am going to let go and that's going to crop it so it's actually the correct size. Over on this side, when it has just that arrow, I'll do the same thing. I will click, pull it over until it lines up with that ruler, and let go. If I move up, I can do the same thing on the top and the bottom of my picture. If I scroll down, I can see that it's actually already there. When I'm done with that, I'm going to click on this arrow, and it gets rid of all the stuff that I just cropped out of my picture. So I can click off to the side, nothing is selected any longer. I have the black rectangle underneath, and the picture of the moose is on top. At this point, this is when I am going to start to actually fill in my picture with the mosaic. So to do this, you are actually going to be using something that's called a polyline tool. If you go up to this area of tools again, there's going to be something that looks like a line. You're going to notice that there's a little arrow that points down next to that as well. So if I click there, I can see this list of options. I'm going to go almost all the way down to the bottom, and the second to last one says polyline. If I click on it, that is now selected, and now I'm going to start to fill in different shapes or different values with colors. The big thing for this is you really want to focus on every area that matches. So if there's one particular area that has a very specific color or a very specific value of that color, that's the area that you want to kind of highlight or go around. So for example, if I want kind of this white or kind of ivory color first, I am going to find where I believe the end of it is. I'll click, I will move my arrow over, and I will continue to click around the whole outside part. Now you're going to notice sometimes this is going to happen. This is actually going to be one of the most frustrating parts of the project, because sometimes if you don't leave enough space between the two areas that you just clicked, it's just going to leave it as a line. So there's not going to be a space in the inside for it to be a shape. When that happens, I'm just going to delete. So I'm going to press my delete button, and then it's going to go away. I can try it again, click, continuing to follow the outside edge. I might have to go a little bit further in than I did the last time, and then just continue. You're going to also see that these lines are obviously very straight. So even if there's a curve and you want to follow that curve, you're going to have to do that kind of in sections. It's not going to be perfectly following the outline of what you have done. Then for the last part, you'll go back to where you began, you'll click there, and it will close off that shape. Here, you're going to go back up to that fill color button, click on it, and here you're going to want to select the color that you think best matches the color that you just outlined. So for mine, I think it was kind of a white or a little bit of an off-white. So I might start with this, click on it, and think, it's not quite right, but it's the same similar idea. So if I go back here, and if I click on this plus button where it says custom, it's going to start with the color that I thought was fairly close. So it gives me a good starting point. But then anywhere on here, and I can even move this around as well, I can go back and I can select kind of a more specific color that I think will match. So I think it's closer to white, say somewhere maybe around there. And then I'm going to click OK. And that is going to fill that in with that color for me. When I'm done with that, then I am going to continue to do this piece by piece for all the different colors and all of the different values on my picture. Keep in mind, something like this moose, I would probably do this part by part for the actual moose itself, and I would probably also do this for the ground down here. But in the area a little bit higher where I see more of that green, I could even choose to leave that empty. You don't necessarily have to do every single part of the entire rectangle, but you definitely want to do every part of your main object. The other thing I want to show you though, is if I continue to do this, with my next shapes that are around the shape that I already did, I do want to leave a little bit of space. If I don't, then it's not going to end up showing the grout in between those spaces later on. So I want to leave a little space so I actually can see that color. I can see the black later. So for example, If I start to outline here, you're going to notice that I'm leaving a little bit of space between, oh, I did it again. But I'm going to leave a little bit of space between the last shape and this shape. So this time I went a little bit further, so I didn't turn it into just that one line. And like I said, that's going to be maybe the one thing that's the most frustrating for people as you do this. But as you go, I think you're going to get the hang of it, and it's going to get a little bit easier over time. And you can do smaller shapes than this. They don't have to be as big as what I'm showing you here. So it can be broken down into smaller parts. I'm going to go back up to where it says fill color, and I will select a color first that I think maybe is the closest. So I know it's kind of a brown. That one is definitely not dark enough. I'll click on this arrow. I'll find a color that I think maybe is close. That one I think maybe is actually too dark, so I'm going to go back up and do it again. You're going to notice that your custom colors are also going to save for you, which will work really nice later on when you maybe need those same ones. But I'll go back up here, find a brown that's a little bit lighter, click OK, and if you think that that's similar to what you want, perfect, go for it. And then you're just going to continue for every different section as you go. It's going to look like it kind of fits together like a puzzle. So if you were to actually push these different pieces together, they would look like they actually fit and belong together. So again, I'll just do a little bit more on my example. I don't think that this exact value goes much further than this, so I'll cut it off there. It seems to kind of cut across, and that's too dark, but I feel like this particular one is maybe a little too light. So I'm just going to change it very slightly and go with that. In this next area, again, I don't think it goes all the way up, so I'm just going to kind of cut it off there. And I think the color is going to be not quite that, maybe a little bit lighter than that one. More of a gray, I think. Okay, and then finally I might have one more up here. And this one is quite a bit lighter than the other ones. Maybe not quite that light, but we're going to go with that for now. Then even in some of these smaller spaces, I'm going to continue to follow each of them as well. Luckily, it let me do that. It didn't think that my line, oh, you know what? I don't like that last part. So you know what I can do? I can actually go back to this arrow, click on it, and what you can do first, when it shows it like this, you can resize it, or you can double click it, and you're going to notice that you can actually move those different marks. So if I click and drag this, I can move that up a little bit, click on the arrow, and I kind of fixed it. So if you feel like you did something wrong, don't assume that you have to erase it and completely redo it. You can actually just adjust as you need to. But now I'm going to go back to this polyline tool. I will click on it and just continue from there. This one's very, very light. It's almost white. I don't think it's perfectly white, but that might be my starting point. And then I think it's kind of in the yellow family. I will move this over, and it's just slightly off from that regular white. I'll continue here. Find a color that I think is somewhat close. Might even be in that color family, except a little bit lighter, so that'll be my starting point again. And I'll just keep going. The nice thing is every once in a while, if you want to check what it's going to look like eventually, you can click on this arrow, click on your picture that you're using as your reference, and then click on delete. When you do that, it's going to give you an idea of what this looks like at the moment if you were to take away the picture. Then all you have to do is click on this back arrow to undo that delete, and it'll be right back there for you to continue working. I do have some that are further along than this, so I'll show you those as well. So if I click on this one, this actually is a picture that I did of my son. So he is standing in the water and he's holding his shoe. So what I did is I took it piece by piece again with the different colors and the different values. Keep in mind that if you have something that has small details, those ones are going to be the most difficult. If you can zoom in and crop out some of the unnecessary details, it will make it easier for you. But what you do is, once again, click on the original picture, click delete, and then you can see what this looks like in the end. I decided that I just wanted a little bit of breathing room for the sky. I wasn't going to quite fill it all in, but I still have most of the water. And then I'll just click on this back arrow, and if I wanted to continue working with that picture, I could, or I could leave that deleted because it could be completed. Another example is of this sheep. So again, this was a nice photograph to begin with because it had a lot of contrast, a lot of really bright highlighted areas from the sun, as well as the extreme dark shadows. So I can click on the sheep, or I mean the original photograph, I'll click on delete, and you can see what it looks like when I get rid of that background. This one I thought was a good one to just not have a background included at all, just because it seemed like it was pretty well positioned for the picture. The photograph itself was kind of coming off of the edge. I didn't have really a lot of empty space or that black showing on all four edges, so the composition was nice even without a background. I'll click the back button, and then you can see again what it looks like without it, or if I feel like it's complete, I could delete that picture and leave it with just the black. Another example of people, keep in mind, like I said before, these have very straight edges, so it's not going to be very easy to do some of the details of a person's face, but to give you an idea of what it could look like, I'll click on the picture, delete it, and again, you can kind of see the parts that I felt like were necessary and the parts that I felt like were not. I'll go back, and you can see what it'll look like with the photograph. The rooster, I am not done. This one actually has just been started. So again, I have all these different parts where I feel like it's kind of matching the original photograph. Click on the rooster, delete it, and that is what I have done so far. You will notice you want to kind of follow the direction of whatever it is that you're going around, especially for something like this rooster. The hair definitely was going in a specific direction. So I wanted to kind of emphasize that by following those edges pretty drastically and making it really obvious as I was going. And then even little changes for the colors are going to make a big deal for this. So even though many of these colors are pretty similar to each other, most of them are actually different in one way or another. So really kind of play around specifically with the different colors that you can find and try to match what's underneath it the best that you possibly can. Like I said, leave black space in between, so leave that grout for in between the different parts, and by the time you're done, you will submit your completed picture that will look something like this to me, and that will get turned in Google Classroom, and I can see it from there. Have fun with it, and of course, let me know if you have any questions at all.